Discharge of fireworks within city limits is against the law. If you see or hear fireworks being discharged, call the Martinsburg Police Department at 304-264-2100. That's 304-264-2100. Remember, it's against the law to set off fireworks in the city of Martinsburg today and every day. This message paid for by the city of Martinsburg.
Hello, this is Delegate Mike Folk, candidate for West Virginia Senate District 16. I want to extend my personal congratulations to all the Little League All-Stars this summer. As a former three-sport athlete and Shepherd football player, I understand the importance of discipline, hard work, and perseverance, something our All-Stars have in common. As you continue your journey through this summer and your life, remember this quote from Hall of Famer Jerry Rice, who said, "Today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can accomplish what others can't." Best of luck and have a great tournament.
Independent insurance agency. You see, there's an important difference between Smith & Nadenbush and agents who work just for one company. Working for one company, they can only sell the products of that company. On the other hand, Smith & Nadenbush can design a program just for you, your family, or your business, and at the right cost. Smith & Nadenbush, Martinsburg, Charlestown, and Berkeley Springs.
With 4 new car dealerships and 4 used car dealerships in 3 states, Parsons is the largest used car and fastest growing new car dealer in the tri-state area. Take Parsons Ford with huge savings on hundreds of new Fords, financing from 0%. Parsons' goal of financing for all. And Parsons' famous above-market trade-in allowances that help make Parsons #1 for used cars, too. See why so many won't buy anywhere but Parsons Ford in Martinsburg. We became #1 by making you #1 first. Parsons.
From the Talk Radio WRNR studios, it's time for Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob Mario and David Welch.
Thank you, Cliff. Good morning and welcome into the program. This first segment of our show brought to you by the Law Office of Joe Ferretti, Attorney at Law. Joe will be in as a co-host today. Formerly the Law Offices of Hammer, Ferretti, and Schiavone, delivering first-rate service and results for our clients. Dave, I have the only thing I can offer up of any substance today is that it is a crime that Lori Stiles does not own her own bakery.
Were those cookies to die for or what? I think I gained 5 pounds because of Lori Stiles yesterday. So thank you, Lori.
Oh, man. I have my oldest son doesn't do desserts, right? Doesn't have a sweet tooth. And the only thing he'll eat that's dessert-wise is when Lori Stiles bakes stuff and I bring it home. And as soon as I got in the house, I said, Dom, I got cookies from Lori Stiles. He comes running downstairs because these are ridiculously good.
Did you like the oatmeal raisin or the lemon cookies best?
Yes.
Yeah, she outdid herself yesterday.
You're asking me to do a Sophie's Choice on that there.
I just ate the last one
great.
this morning on the way into work today.
Just marvelous stuff.
Hey, so what has it ever happened before where in one of the 4 major sports where the coach wins the championship and then within a week goes to another team? Has that ever happened before? I suppose it probably has.
In 94 was the last time it happened when Mike Keenan won the Cup with the Rangers.
Okay.
And he did not re-sign with the Rangers. Hasn't happened since.
Did he go to immediately to another team then?
Yes. I don't know that it was a division rival, but he went to another team.
Yeah.
The head coach of the Capitals ends up with the Islanders. Yesterday, 5 years, $20 million, $4 million a year average.
So $4 million a year for a head coach, or in baseball, what they call manager, that's I don't know. Is that on the high end of what they pay managers/coaches?
He will be one of the better paid hockey coaches.
Okay. How about in NFL? Is that pretty common for?
$4 million is not enough if you want to be a head coach in the NFL.
Okay.
You're not going to keep a good coach at $4 million.
And baseball? What's the deal on that?
It kind of the ranges, because there's so many of them who are
down market managers.
There's a lot of small market managers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Financial small
Yeah.
markets. Let's say good morning to our intern, Savant Hutter, who we did not have her benefit yesterday. She runs our social media. Good morning, Savant.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Did you remind him to turn on the YouTube?
Yes, I did, of course.
Good job.
And we're recording on the YouTube, too. Yeah. Looks great, I might add. The picture is very good. We're going to work on the audio, getting that better. But the picture
Audio is probably has some room for improvement, but the visual, you're right, it is just spot on.
excellent.
A couple of times I've seen it.
So that when you look at Senator Craig Blair's smiling face today later on YouTube, if you're not watching live on Comcast Cable Channel 10 right now, you want to catch the replay about noon on YouTube. We'll put in WRNR TV. You'll see the Senate Finance Chairman smiling and thrilled to be here on a rainy day. Good morning, Craig.
Good morning.
You brought Mr. Welch a gift.
Yeah, since he fidgets a lot in here, and I figured, well, I'd pull something out to give him hands something to do while we had a discussion, Rob. Don't plug it in.
You do a little belt sanding while we're...
That's called a grinder.
A grinder?
It's for metal, mostly.
grinder.
Nice. Put that on Mr. Hornby's Formica top here. See how he
I'll
likes
use it on Mike Carl later on when he's in. I just pointed at him.
No, don't be misconstrued. I'm taking it with me.
Oh,
when
you
I'm
are?
here.
Okay. All right. It was just to play with while I'm here.
A grinder.
That's actually a good thing. Some people bring baked goods in for me to eat, and other people bring me toys. I think that's good.
This is nice.
Yeah. Thanks, Craig.
So we're going to go do some grinding now?
We could, yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad to know that Craig loves me like that, too.
See, he thought of you as a gift. I think that's very nice.
No, wait a minute. Then I'm an Indian giver. Because I really didn't consider it as a gift.
They did that. There was an episode on that on Seinfeld, if I recall. Craig, yesterday we spoke to Delegate Jason Barrett, Delegate John Overington, Delegate Darrell Coles, all in regards to the 22-count indictment against Justice Loffrey, former Chief Justice of the West Virginia State Supreme Court. And the question was raised, Delegate Barrett said, ask the Republicans you're going to have on your show later on why they are not moving toward impeachment of Justice Loffrey. What more evidence do they need? Craig, why aren't Republicans moving toward impeachment charges against Justice Loffrey?
Well, there's a multitude of reasons for this. First of all, let's look at it from the financial standpoint. If we did impeachment, it could actually go $35 a day, and that impeachment process could last a month. Now, it could also last one day.
You said it could go $35 a day. You mean per
$35,000 a day.
Big difference.
The cost of the legislature. Thank you for correcting me on that. I didn't realize I said that wrong. But see, there's an expense involved in this. Right now, if we look at the justice, or Loffrey is a better way of putting it, he's not sitting on the court. He's not getting pay. He's got the indictment. The Judicial Review Board has actually put in something to the Bar Association to have his license removed, is my understanding. If we wanted to do anything, I think the legislature ought to just sign on board saying, hey, remove his law license, because without his law license, he can't sit on the court as well. Loffrey is not going to resign, okay? That's a given, and the reason for it is that it's basically, in the court of a public opinion, would be admitting guilt. And so when he's got all this stuff going out in front, and keep in mind that he actually worked for the court system too before he was elected a judge, so he's paid into a retirement on that. I have no problems personally with impeaching him, zero. For that matter, except for the fact of the expenses that's involved on this. Now, if the Democrats all go out in the steps and on the Capitol and say that we are rock solid, 36 of us on the House side, and I think it's 12 on the Senate side, we're willing to vote to impeach Alan Loffrey. Well, then that's great. We need to know that. Because you also have to call yourself into the session. But again, I think that there's a much, much better path to go on this that doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. And that is to allow it to play out the way it is when he loses his law license, which has been done before. Okay, law licenses, you don't have to wait to be convicted to lose your license. It happens lots of times that the bar removes their license before they're ever convicted of anything. They can be reinstated later.
Craig, why would it be $35,000 a day to begin impeachment proceedings?
Well, when you have the legislature, when they're in session for a special session, you pay the legislators $150 a day for their salary, and then
For their meals and lodging, basically, right?
No, that's different. The meals.
Oh,
and
that's an
lodging,
extra pay they get.
right?
Okay.
That's the pay they get, and then it's $131 for the meals and lodging.
Okay.
And to put that in context, it's hard to find a hotel in Charleston now that you don't spend at least $95 or more. It's hard to find a motel or hotel in West Virginia now because of all the building and construction and things that are going on in this state.
Well, as one who does travel from time to time for business, I can guarantee you it's hard to find a hotel anywhere, really, for $95 a night.
Right. So you know, when you hear those numbers, you think, well, that's a lot of money.
Right.
Now, there's one other aspect of it that Jason said, who is a good friend for that matter, but I disagree entirely with him. He was saying that it's political that we're not going after Lawfrey.
Because he's a Republican.
Because he was or is a Republican, yes. And he was the last person elected to the court that before we got rid of the partisan elections for the judicial. Okay? And that was the right thing to do. But the fact of the matter is, Republicans are actually harder on Republicans than what they are Democrats. Okay? It's almost like Dave Welsh here. Whenever I come in here, he's tougher on me than what he would be on my counterpart and everything. Why? Because it's in his DNA that he expects more from a Republican because he is a Republican. And I'm not being demeaning when I say that. It's the truth on how we behave with ourselves.
Well,
and you never heard me say anything before about that because I don't care. I get it. I understand where it's coming from. And we expect the same thing from Alan Lawfrey.
I can tell you, Craig, there's at least one Republican elected official who doesn't like to come on this show because that person believes we ask them too tough of questions.
Yeah. But this is part of the process so I don't pay any attention to that. So I disagree with Jason entirely from that standpoint and there you go.
Would there be, Craig, I'm interested, so I completely understand what you're saying right now and in terms of your rationale on the impeachment question, and I'm surprised to hear anyone say that he's just not going to resign, but you lay out a good case as to why he probably wouldn't do that, and I get that too. There's going to be, I guess the next big step in this process will be the grand jury. We'll convene, correct? And he will go in front of the grand jury. If the grand jury handed down, maybe not 22 counts, but let's say 14 counts, 13 counts, whatever, and charged him with that officially, would that be a point in time where you might say, hey, he's been charged by a grand jury, I'm going to now change my mind and say impeachment's probably a good thing?
No, I didn't say that.
No, I didn't. I know you didn't say that. I'm asking you, would at that point in time, would you at that juncture say, okay, impeachment's probably appropriate now?
If I could get the impeachment done in one day of special session, I'm on board right now to get rid of him. Okay? I do not like a black eye on the state of West Virginia when so many good things are happening in this state that we have this black eye, and this is a national black eye. This is not one that is affecting just the state of West Virginia. We're trying to recruit businesses in and change the dynamics and the perception of our state to the rest of the world so that we can actually pull ourselves up and do better, get people back to work. So I don't hesitate on flushing the toilet, so to speak, on somebody on this. But let's look at the math. We got to be careful that we don't get ourselves into a situation that you end up a month, 2 months, trying somebody in an impeachment process and costing a bunch of money when he's not sitting on the court to start with.
So he goes to the grand jury, and then he goes, obviously at some point in time, he would have his day in court. Let's say he is convicted of serious felonies in court. At that point in time, because he's a convicted felon, he has to leave the court anyway. Is that correct?
He's already left the court. He's been removed. Okay, he's not getting pay. He's not doing any cases or anything like that.
So
that's out.
He's currently not a justice of the West Virginia Supreme Court.
As a working justice, that's correct. But he's not even getting paid.
So impeachment is then, are you saying that a move toward impeachment is a political ploy then? Is it just to get attention and to drive home a point? Is that what you're saying?
Well, of course, and that's the job of the minority. Remember, I was in the minority for a long time, 8 years in the House, 2 years
You
in
were
the
good
Senate.
at it too, by the way.
Exactly, and I do not disagree with their perspective of making an issue out of this. I understand exactly where they're coming from. If I was in Jason's shoes, in the Democrats' shoes, I would be doing exactly the same thing because it's their job to police and push the majority.
That's not honest, isn't it, Rob?
It is.
It's pretty honest, yeah.
But that's the beauty. I've had the perspective of being on both sides of that. So I get where he's coming from on that. All I'm saying is put your 36 together and your 12 in the Senate and step forward and say that we want to be on the record, all of us, that we want to impeach Alan Lawfrey or whoever else it is that they want to impeach. Get your face out there and make sure you're on the record, because what we don't want is that as we're making planning decisions, and I've witnessed this over and over, is they say one thing, and then when it comes time, then they don't want to agree to what they've already agreed to, and they want to up the ante. This is what we've had to deal with in the leadership side of it at times on certain issues. And it's like, no, you go ahead and get out in the public record as a collective.
Process question.
Dave, before you go on to them, let me just relate this text from Delegate Barrett, as we were just discussing him as part of this.
Good morning, Jason.
He apparently is listening before the tea time at the first. Finally, a Republican that says he should be impeached, and it's a black eye on the state. I agree it's not political for Craig, but I think it is with a lot of Republicans in the legislature. If impeachment proceedings would start, Lawfrey would then resign. That's Jason's theory on if you guys would just simply start the impeachment proceedings, he would bolt.
Yeah, and I don't even. Why would he? What's he got to lose? He could sit there and watch this drag out. I don't see Lawfrey resigning. Right, he's been obstinate, to say the least, through this whole process. Keep in mind that in my committee, it's not my committee, on the Senate Finance Committee, he came in to give the budget report, and he started going down the path of talking about his issues and the court's issues not pertaining to the budget. I had to stop him and say, that's out of the purview of what we're here to discuss here today.
Right.
But he's so wrapped up into telling his tale or whatever it may be on what's going on. I do not see him resigning because of the case that he has right now, that what's going through. He'll play it all the way to the end, and keep in mind that Lawfrey has the ability to come in and mount a case as well in the impeachment process and represent himself. It's a trial.
In process question, I need to ask this, Rob.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Senate doesn't have anything. If it works on the federal model, the Senate has nothing to do with impeachment. It's all in the House. The House impeaches, the Senate tries. Okay, gotcha.
We're the jury, so to speak.
So the House, what they need then is 36 Democrats and 15 Republicans. Any chance? Do they get 15 Republicans?
If I had to bet on it, I would bet that there's a relatively decent chance.
Okay.
That they could do it. That's why I said what I've said here this morning. And again, if we could do it in an expedited process, my golly, why not? I have zero problems with flushing the toilet on this man and moving him on because of the fact that we're in the business of fixing West Virginia and getting businesses here and getting jobs for our people and getting people to move into this state. Granted, we've got it made here in the Eastern Panhandle. People are actually moving in, but elsewhere, they're moving out. It makes it hard to have a tax base to be able to give the teachers pay raises, to be able to pay PIA, to be able to get the roads, the asphalt put down. The list goes on and on.
Delegate Mike Folk texted in that Lawfrey was offered a deal 3 months ago, Craig, 90 days jail, suspend law license for 1 year, and resign, and he said no.
It makes my case. on that he's going to be obstinate about this, and he's going to ride it for as long as he can on it. So the impeachment process could be a long process. And the best thing that we've got in front of us right now has already been done. And if he loses his law license, he can't be on the...
Craig, does any of this have to do with state pension? If he resigns, he keeps it. If he's convicted, he loses it. Is that true one way or the other?
No, if he's convicted, he will actually... Excuse me. If he's impeached, he will lose his pension. That's one of the pluses to impeaching him.
Mm-hmm. If he resigns without any impeachment proceedings, he keeps his pension. But what if he's indicted and ends up with an actual felony charge?
I think he does not lose it. He doesn't lose his pension. I remember other cases being out here where they were convicted of a crime and they still got their pension.
But if you impeach him, he loses his pension. That's what you're saying?
Correct. And keep in mind
that could counter the charges of $35,000 a day, though.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. And that money, that the judicial pension system is the most funded one. I think it's like 120% funded.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Because they were in charge of their own money. Yeah. Why would it not be?
But in other words, that money's not accessible, so to speak, to re-divert it somewhere else. That's what I'm trying.
But maybe he'll get to keep that county bronze plaque that's in his wooden floor and take that as a souvenir. I don't know.
And I'd say no on that too.
Yeah, it's probably paid for by taxpayer money.
Exactly.
By the way, Mike Folk also texted that the grand jury are the ones who handed down the indictments, and so I might have misspoke earlier when I asked that question, but I'm quite sure Larry Schultz said that step has not yet come, that what has come is the federal attorney has made these charges.
Right.
So if the grand jury is the one who handed down these indictments, I apologize for
and
that. I thought that Larry Schultz had said yesterday that step had not yet occurred.
Yeah, and that's another thing about this whole process. There's a lot of nuances in the wording and things like that. I knew exactly what you were talking about when you spoke to me about it, and I just read right on through it because it wasn't necessary. It is all these little details that come into play when you're going through the impeachment process that you have to be careful of, that you don't self up a can of worms that could end up costing the taxpayers millions of dollars when it's over and done with. That he's not
effectively he's been neutered already.
Exactly. Thank you for using that analogy because that's what I see it. It's making it so that he's not doing anything as it is.
We have about 2 minutes left, Craig. The implication is that this might just be the tip of the iceberg. There could be other justices who are also charged with offenses maybe not as egregious, but perhaps something beneath this.
I've heard rumors of that, but see, this is the thing that once again that I'm a little bit embarrassed. We got a court system that is now that you can look at it, and they've been making great decisions, in my opinion. Okay, the collective have been making some really, really good decisions over the last couple of years, and I felt that it wasn't a biased court system. And then we've got this, and it just sends the wrong message to industry out there nationally that people want to locate, like here. If we had this going on 2 years ago, would this have been something that could have possibly kept Procter & Gamble from locating here?
Fair question.
You see where I'm going with this?
As a state senator on the impeachment question, because you would sit as the jury, really, in an impeachment, is it prudent for senators to not offer up their opinions on the impeachment issue? Because at some point, they might have to sit as a judge?
I have to take an oath at that point in time. When you go to start the impeachment process, I can take an oath, have to take an oath. That's at that point in time.
Okay.
Until then, I'm free game.
All right.
Craig, you're also now free of your duty to appear on the talk show for the rest of the morning. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take my grinder with me, Dave.
Thank you, Craig.
It is 8:31. Our crew joins us next. Joe Ferretti, Sammi Brown, and Mike Caryl after the 8:31 news break. And I believe Delegate Mike Folk would like to call in by phone. I think he's holding right now. Back in a sec.
The complicated process of reunification begins.
You have to bring the families back together. You have to get those kids with their parents.
The government is scrambling to pair up immigrant children with parents who were separated before the president reversed policy this week. CBS's Hannah Doba.
The Trump administration says about 500 of more than the 2,300 children separated from their families have been reunited since May, but there is still no clear solution or timeline for the rest.
As many as 700 children have been taken to shelters or foster care in New York State. It came as a surprise to Governor Andrew Cuomo, who says the Department of Health and Human Services won't tell him exactly where.
I have the legal right to know where the children are because I have the legal responsibility for the health and welfare of the children.
The Pentagon says it is preparing military bases in Texas and Alabama. CBS News Update. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. Berkeley County Schools will be sued by a father of a Mountain Ridge Middle School student. Richard Penkoski says that last month his daughter's class was assigned to write the Islamic Declaration of Faith in Arabic, and that's contrary to his religious beliefs. Penkoski, who runs an online ministry, has the backing of a Michigan firm, the Thomas More Law Center, which has become known for taking such cases. School officials, for their part, have said the assignment was just a part of a unit on the history of 5 major world religions. According to Governor Jim Justice's office, parking rates at the Capitol complex will stay the same as they are now. This after the governor ordered a proposal to increase the rates withdrawn. The Department of Administration filed a notice of public comment with the Secretary of State on June 11th, which proposed to amend a state regulation that sets the parking rates and fines on lots at the complex. That would have raised both the rates and the fines by a significant amount. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
Cool, drab, and drippy all kind of sum up the Friday forecast here as we get some periods of showers in the morning that will be tapering off, but not until probably after lunchtime into the afternoon. Our forecast high near 74. The winds coming in from the east under 10 miles per hour, and it'll stay cloudy into the evening time, and overnight will be dry for the most part, although some showers can return into the early morning, and we look for a low near 64 degrees. Tomorrow, expect a rainy start to the day, hopefully a little sunshine later afternoon as a warm front comes through. Highest temperature near 82, then partly sunny, warm, and muggy on Sunday with a high of 86 and some scattered afternoon storms. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio WRNR.
After removing your creme brulee from the oven, your dessert should look just scrumptious. Now sprinkle with some sugar and use your torch to braise it to a golden, crispy brown.
Disasters happen. Fire, water, and natural disasters. Tell your insurance provider you prefer Blue Ridge Property Restore. Blue Ridge Property Restore, getting you back from disaster faster.
Join us next week when we tackle Baked Alaska.
The Wellness Center at Berkeley Medical Center has introduced a 10-week sports-specific training program called SPEED for 12 to 17-year-old athletes. The goal of SPEED is to evaluate each individual athlete, assess their deficiencies, and design programs to improve the athlete's performance. The new program for young athletes includes strength and conditioning coaching from the Wellness Center pros, as well as the Technogym equipment. If you're interested in building a foundation of long-term athletic success and injury prevention for your athlete, contact the Wellness Center at Berkeley Medical Center.
Simply Free e-checking from City National Bank. Perfect if you want basic checking with no monthly service fees or balance requirements. Stop by any of our 7 Eastern Panhandle locations or visit us online at bankatcity.com. City National Bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Hi, honey.
Where are you?
I've been in line at the post office for the last 30 minutes.
Why are you at the post office? It'll take you all day.
Where else do I go to ship my packages or drop FedEx off at?
Honey, going postal is way faster, has less lines, and friendly service.
Where's going postal?
It's right in the Common Shopping Center in Martinsburg. They'll ship your packages quickly, and you can avoid the lines.
Going postal should be your first choice for all your shipping needs. Going postal, the Commons, Martinsburg.
The Honda 4th of July sales event has brilliant deals on our most popular vehicles, like the Civic, Fit, and Pilot. It's a reason to celebrate across the country, from the Liberty Bell to Hollywood, and even back up to Niagara Falls. So come discover the 2018 KBB.com Best Overall Brand during the Honda 4th of July sales event, now at your Honda dealer.
Miller Honda, south of Winchester, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. www.mymillerhonda.com.
Based on 2018 brand image awards from Caryl Blue Book. Visit kbb.com for more information.
Welcome back to the program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave and the Friday crew, brought to you in this segment by the Washington Nationals. MLB At Bat is your #1 Nationals app. Customize your experience to catch every moment this season. Get Nationals home screen icons and features such as the MLB.TV Game of the Day, pitch tracking, in-game highlights, live radio broadcast, stats, news, and more. Download MLB At Bat today. And
my boy Reese
David?
Hoskins is coming to town this weekend with the Phillies.
You going?
I'm not going to be able to make it, unfortunately, because when I go and the Phillies are in town, I get to go down on the infield and hang out for.
Yeah, you took batting practice.
I
once.
didn't take it. I stood behind the
Go with it, Dave.
and watched. They did not put a bat in my hand when and they haven't yet. I don't think they are. It wouldn't matter. I wouldn't be able to hit it anyway.
We've had so much rain lately. The National Weather Service had issued a flash flood watch for parts of our listening area this morning up until 9 a.m. My niece, Ava Marie, in Pittsburgh 2 days ago, had to have water rescue come and get her from her house. She actually did a Facebook Live video while it was taking place. She has a creek that runs through the back of her property. And in the space of 5 minutes, it went from tire level of their house to picking a boat up and putting it on top of the shed in their backyard. That's how high the water got.
Oh, my.
In 5 minutes. And they had to have her husband, fiance, husband-to-be, ran out of the house to try to move their vehicles to higher level. He ended up having to hold on to the mailbox as the water was rushing by, and a neighbor came out, threw a line to him to pull him in before the water rescue got there. And she's got, the water levels coming up. She was actually Facebook Live. This is what we live in, the culture we live in now. She was actually Facebook Living the broadcast of the flood coming up the steps of her house into her home and figuring out how to get out of there while this was going on. It was something to watch.
So I have a few questions about that, though. What was the camera work like?
She did a great job. I gotta say, considering her life was at stake, it was pretty impressive.
Are all the females in your family named Marie or Maria?
It's like that scene from Goodfellas. All the boys are Petey and Paul, and I do have relatives Petey and Paul, and all the women are Maria or Maria.
And Joe, how about you? Marie and Maria, big popular name in your family?
It is actually, and my oldest daughter.
Why did I know this?
My oldest daughter's middle name is Maria.
Why did I know this?
And that was after my great grandmother and all.
My sister's middle names are Marie and Maria because you don't want to confuse the two of them.
Exactly. Isn't that funny? If you have multiple children in the family, how often, for those of us who have grown up in larger families, do we get called one of our siblings' names when, like, mom's mad?
Oh, sure.
She'll go through, like, when there was 3 boys in our family, and oftentimes if she was mad at one of us, she'd go through the other 2 names before she got the right one.
Let's say good morning to our panel this morning, and we have Delegate Mike Folk via telephone 2. We're going to get to in just a second. Let's say hello to Mike Caryl. Michael.
Good morning.
Former tax commissioner of the state of West Virginia, and a man who would be quite busy, I'm sure, right now if he were still tax commissioner.
Well, I would. Now, I want to talk a minute when we have time about the sales tax ruling in the Supreme Court.
5-4 decision yesterday. When you go online now to purchase something, real good chance if your state has sales tax, you'll be paying it online now. And Joe Ferretti, attorney at law, who will answer some process questions for us this morning about how impeachment proceedings, grand jury indictments, and such go on, too. We have 2 attorneys in the house. Good morning, Joe.
Wow, I guess it's time to bill here, Mike. Start the meter.
Beautiful. Wow.
Mike's $400 an hour, Ferretti's $399. He's given the discount today. And also Sammi Brown. Good morning, Sammi.
Good morning.
And you're already drier than you were 2 weeks ago when you were here.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Even with the rain.
She's sitting in Jason's chair today.
Doused
and
by
I have
coffee.
to tell you, from where I sit across the table, this is a much better view than it usually is on Friday mornings.
He'll love to hear that.
Yeah, indeed. Delegate Mike Folk joins us on the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen and ladies.
And pleasure to have you on, sir. You had commented during Senator Blair's appearance with us in the previous half of an hour in regards to Justice Lawfrey and resigning, that he was offered the opportunity to resign and not only said no, he said hell no.
That's what I was told by a pretty reliable source yesterday, and he has been indicted. It's right on the Southern District's website.
Mm-hmm.
I sent you a snapshot of that. He's been indicted by a federal grand jury already. It was 22 counts. So it's past the indictment stage. And you were talking about his retirement. My understanding, and Joe can probably confirm this, and you have A. James Manchin as an example. He was impeached, but he was not removed because he resigned before the Senate took it up.
Manchin.
So therefore, he got to keep his pension.
So he was impeached and still kept his pension?
That's my understanding, yes.
Joe or Mike?
He was impeached by the House, but resigned before the Senate trial. So he wasn't convicted of impeachable.
Which is what Richard Nixon did back in 1974.
No,
he wasn't.
He was never impeached.
He resigned. He resigned.
Clinton was the one.
He resigned before he went.
Before he was
before the House voted to impeach.
Okay, so
it was the Judiciary Committee who voted to impeach him, but it didn't go to the House. I think we'll have to look that up.
Could be.
That's accurate. Now,
and one other thing I'll add is, there was a resolution to impeach Lawford during the session, and Mike Pushkin was the one that had it, and Pat McGeehan signed on to it. I said I would sign on to it if he added one or two more justices.
Even Folk couldn't get through that without laughing.
Please don't tell us which ones you're talking about.
Laughter from Mike Folk.
Well, no, I said I knew at least one other one that probably should be impeached, and I won't mention names, but it's probably one that's being investigated right now. And you probably know who it is off the top of your head for using taxpayer-funded vehicles for his son. And but I have a bigger problem, and Mike maybe is familiar with one of these cases. I have a bigger problem with sometimes the Supreme Court abdicating their constitutional responsibility to review cases. There's been several cases brought to them where they basically, I've been involved in one or two, where they just literally punted without giving any rationale, reason, case law, or anything. And the one that Mike may be familiar with is one that Roger Hanshaw had on the property rights issue, where an animal was taken from a lady without ever having a hearing. And it went to the Supreme Court, and they wouldn't hear the case.
Well, Mike,
I have a bigger problem with them abdicating their constitutional duties in regards to reviewing cases.
Well, to be fair, and I don't know anything about that particular case, but it's never been anybody's view that they have a constitutional mandate to review on the merits every case. They had the right.
Well, it's not,
they could deny cert, in effect, and that's been the problem. Now, when the pressure started to establish an intermediate court of appeals as a countermeasure, they claim to have changed their rules so that they say they now do review, as a matter of their rules, every case on the merits. But you're absolutely right that they do punt. This so-called what's the term they use? The decision that's
the memorandum decision.
Memorandum decision, right?
I got a question. Does Ferretti bill you for the answer to that question? Does that work?
No, he's taking care of
professional
courtesy.
Co-counsel.
Senior bar member here.
I don't know if we had to figure the fraction of $400 an hour for 5 seconds of work.
But be careful, because he's looking for a new name for that law firm.
My name won't help you. They start, and plus it'd be a little confusing to people that know us. but they started this thing where they review it just on the face of the appeal and the record, and don't really have briefs or oral argument, and those cases are supposed to be. You only do that if it's a slam dunk and there's no real issue of law, is the way they put it. And I've had cases where they vote. It was a 3-2 vote, and one of the justices filed a dissenting opinion, just crucifying the majority. I mean, a case like that should have been dealt with in full measure, plenary review.
Well,
so your point is right, except that it isn't a constitutional obligation of the court to do any more than just review the appeal on the merits.
I have a problem with the three cases that I can think of off the top of my head that I have a problem with, of them not doing what I thought should have been a good review of the case and actually hearing oral arguments at the minimum, or at least briefs at the minimum, and making a written opinion based on something besides we're not just going to hear it, had to do with trying to get the government, some form of government in a state agency typically, or in this case, Hanshaw, it sounds like a local government, to follow the law. Laws that were passed by the legislature, and they just totally fell on the government side and deaf ears to the people that, the plaintiffs that were trying to get the government just to follow the law.
Mike,
and that's why I have a problem with it.
Well, I have a huge problem with it, and I guarantee I've run into that, in my professional life more times than you can count. It is a problem, but that's the court. That's an attitudinal problem, and I don't know. I don't know if it's impeachable, but it's just. For instance, I think because they're elected, they're far too sensitive to local officials. Who local elected officials, and therefore it's next to impossible, for instance, to win a property tax valuation case, except an example I've given on this show before of a man named Charles Wright from Jefferson County who was pro se, that is, with no lawyer other than me coaching him a little bit, and he's the only one that's won a valuation property tax case in my lifetime.
Really?
Yes.
Well, and I'm sure Roger Hanshaw could give you tons of.
Oh yeah, Roger would
on regulatory matters.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, the tax things I do, a lot of it involve the tax department. Is that's the ultimate regulation.
Okay, so before we say goodbye to Mike, my question is first and foremost, I'm not sure on the pension issue. Lawfrey gets a pension or doesn't get a pension, depending on what happens here with impeachment or conviction. Anybody know?
It's hard to say.
I think if he's.
Go ahead, Mike. You want to say something?
I have to review the code, but I think there's some stuff put in the code that if you're found guilty of a felony, especially of misappropriations of government money, which is the accusation, obviously, not just on him. There's been a lot of accusations where some of the other justices have spent a couple $100,000 more than he did. He just happened to lie about it.
Mike, I would also think that there's an element that if it involves an act against the government, which this is, I think they went after Arch Moore. I don't know what. I honestly don't remember how that turned out, but they went after him for theft of service, or not theft of services, but just failure to render services for getting a salary, and they tried to recover. And I don't know what happened to Arch Moore's pension.
Yeah, I don't recall either. I just know that we live in interesting times.
Well, I think the threshold question here is, does he qualify for a pension yet? He's served 6 years.
Well,
which isn't a terribly long.
Oh no!
Craig said
he's always government service.
Yeah.
Remember Daryl McGraw, one of these janitor service at WVU, didn't be included.
So being a clerk with the Supreme Court.
Oh yeah, years of service. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, because I didn't know if that had been resolved.
He was several years on the court as a employee. So he's got
then he's going to vest.
Pension.
Yeah. So, all right, Mike. Hey, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
You have a good day.
Delegate Paul Espinosa has texted a question for our two attorneys on staff here today, and we're going to borrow more of your legal advice here. So, Paul asks, with federal charges pending, would impeachment proceedings potentially violate the right against self-incrimination? And two, would initiating impeachment proceedings against the justice or former justice, as the case may be, at this juncture, potentially grant any immunity from prosecution? So two questions there. With federal charges pending, would impeachment proceedings potentially violate the right against self-incrimination? Let's tackle that one first. Yes? No? Don't know.
Well, I think he would have a good argument for a continuance of one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly the impeachment proceeding, and might get a judge to, based on, that's a good point that Paul's raised, that you couldn't, and that's why the judicial investigation process is suspended pending the outcome of these federal charges.
Yeah, and I assume the standard for impeachment is as it is on the federal level, high crimes and misdemeanors. I think that's probably in our Constitution somewhere. So
whatever that means.
Yeah,
does that mean a felon? Does that mean, you know?
Yeah, that's always been a matter of debate, David. But I think when you take that just literally, high crimes and misdemeanors, if his impeachment is based upon criminal activity, I think Paul raises a very good question. The justice would be hamstrung in his ability to defend himself in the well of the Senate if he has pending federal criminal charges that he's worried about. So it probably has to be an orderly process here, and perhaps that's if the legislature could come up with reasons other than a criminal activity to impeach him, if there's some kind of dereliction of duty type thing or something that's in the background here, then perhaps they could proceed with that. But I think it's an interesting point.
Just as the non-lawyer here, and just a regular schmo, trying to figure this out.
Yesterday you were a regular schmuck. Now you're a schmo.
Yeah,
Make up your mind.
Regular schmo, one of the two. So I'm trying to decide: do I think the call for impeachment is a good thing or not a good thing? And so you ultimately, impeachment is a kind of is sort of at least to some degree, a political thing. I mean, it is a political move. Yeah. And in this case, what you have is the Democratic leadership, I think the entire caucus on the House side has said, we think there should be impeachment. And the Republicans are saying, not so fast. I mean, you've got the leader in both houses saying, he should resign, but they're kind of saying, nah, I don't think that's the way to go right now. So I wonder, I'm trying to decide who's right on this issue. I mean, because it seems to me that on the face of it, and maybe Sammi would want to comment on this, but the Democratic members of the House are trying to make this, they're sort of playing political gamesmanship with this in order to gain public opinion favor. I'm open-minded on this. I can be persuaded otherwise, but that's the way it seems to me right now. And the adults in the legislature, the Republicans, are saying, no, there's a process here. We need to slow this down a little bit. And that's how I'm reading it right now, but I am open-minded toward it.
That's fair. But to really put this in full perspective, we're thinking about actual corruption within our judicial system. So I don't know if it's so much gamesmanship as for calling it what it is. There is an individual that is part of the judicial system that is clearly corrupt and should be held accountable. And we're wondering why, with all of the facts present, why you're not. Why are we not going forward with the process?
Mike could probably speak to this, but maybe it's because the Republicans are saying there's already a process in place that will ultimately lead to an outcome that, if he is in fact guilty, will result in his ousting. And if you let that process play through, we don't have to do the political part of it right now. And as Craig says, at great expense to taxpayers.
It's $35,000 a day.
It's just spinning wheels. It's absolutely a political stunt. I'd be all for it if there were no other process, ultimately really more serious, certainly to him. And the question about the right to not be, not testify against your, interest. He can't, if he goes to trial on these criminal charges, he can't possibly be acquitted without testifying in this given these circumstances.
So
it's impossible. So that's just a theoretical issue. But impeachment, it's just piling on, and let's pile on, but it's so expensive at $35,000 a day.
I do read that the Democrats own this argument right now in terms of the court of public opinion. I do think that if you're looking for who's right on this politically, who stands to gain the most, they're calling for an end of corruption in government. This is an obvious case of corruption. The Democrats seem to be on the right side of this issue politically.
But then let's talk about the fiscal responsibility, because then we had the $32K couch, which then got returned at the expense of the taxpayer. So we already have things that are falling back on the people of West Virginia. I don't know if this is so much about political gamesmanship. And I also want to ask, since we have brought it up to be a partisan issue, if this was a Democrat, would we be expediting the process? Would we be calling for impeachment then?
Craig Blair admitted to that point on the earlier show today. He said
if he was in the minority.
If he was in the minority, he would be doing the same thing, because that's the job of the minority to do.
That's not what Sammi's asking right now.
It was the most honest thing that's ever been said at this table, probably.
I'm here to tell you that if the same, if one of the other justices who would be identified as a Democrat. The last time, they had a partisan election was, a Democrat.
Right.
I would be as opposed, and under the same circumstances, indictment, suspension of the law license, suspension from service on the court. I would be as opposed to adding on impeachment and all the cost of it, and the redundancy of it, and it doesn't add a thing. It doesn't add a thing.
Let me clarify real quick the Craig Blair statement. Craig was talking about if the Republicans were in the minority, they would be banging the pots and pans. He wasn't addressing the fact that if this judge was known officially as a Democrat, it would change the tunes of the Republicans. He's talking about how a minority party would address this issue, not how they would address it in the majority party based on the judge's party. I want to make sure that clarification is clear.
That's a good clarification, and I don't think the fact that Laughley was elected as a Republican even plays into this. The fact of the matter is that the Democratic leaders in this state are calling for an impeachment, and the Republicans are being slow to do that. And I'm just trying to figure out. So I'm not making this a partisan question.
He just made that distinction. It happens to be partisan.
I'm asking a question that's already out there, because the Democrats are, all 36 of them, from what I understand, are calling for an impeachment proceeding to go forward, and the Republicans aren't doing it. So the partisanship on this already exists. I'm just asking.
Point 2 from Paul is: would initiating impeachment proceedings at this juncture potentially grant any immunity from prosecution? Is that a consideration at all, Mike or Joe?
I don't think so.
No,
you're not going to get immunity.
You can't. The action of the West Virginia legislature can't grant immunity for federal criminal charges.
As I sit here, I can understand how an impeachment process can proceed, even with the underlying criminal matter that's pending. The legislature would basically file charges that there is an appearance of impropriety, which is a different standard than some kind of conviction standard in the criminal realm. So they could actually proceed with impeachment, I believe, under that subject heading. There's an appearance of impropriety with this justice. He brings shame to the court. He's affecting the reputation of our top court in the state. We need to do something about him, and then proceed in that fashion.
How does this play in? The Republicans have now for several years included in their messaging, they want to end waste, fraud, and abuse. You hear that word all the time. Absolutely. Waste, fraud, and abuse. After 80 years of Democratic rule, we've got this waste, fraud, and abuse. We need to clear it out. And here's the Democrats saying, okay, guys, let's get out there and start cleaning up this waste, fraud, and abuse. And the Republicans are like, well, again, kind of going a little bit more slowly on it.
It's purely a fiscal matter. This guy is history. He's toast. This problem has been addressed. So impeachment is just redundant and unnecessary.
So what's the process to make sure that there is no more expense to the people of West Virginia? As in, he doesn't deserve a pension. That's taxpayer dollars.
Well, that would be, a legitimate proceeding that I don't know who's the proper party for that.
And then you've got the November ballot. I guess we get to vote on it this November.
Put all that effort supporting that amendment to the Constitution.
I'd like to get the 5 people that are going to vote against that around this table sometime and talk to them.
Look, the concern here is that this federal criminal matter is going to take a while. We know that. It's going to take many months.
Oh, way past November.
How long do you keep the highest court in the state in limbo without a justice there other than through some emergency appointment just to make sure we have 5? How long do you keep our court in that position without a replacement for Justice Lowry?
Can you put a temporary replacement in there?
There's a temporary.
There is now. Okay, got it.
There is now.
You got to have 5.
So the court's functioning as 5 members essentially right now.
Through a temporary appointment.
But he's hanging on to. He's not resigning because he needs that for plea bargaining purposes. The leverage is a little stronger than when he turned it down.
Hey, we got to get to the news at 9 o'clock. Attorney Stephen Skidder has texted me and said impeachment is a political process, not a legal process. His constitutional rights shouldn't interfere with the political process. Distinction being made right there. It's 9 o'clock. Our news break is next. This is Talk Radio WRNR Martinsburg. More to come.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Zoom Video Conferencing.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez, bringing together immigrant parents and children after the president's reversal, proving to be a tricky proposition. Some of the kids are so young they can't talk. Some of the parents have been sent back home. CBS's Steve Futterman is in Brownsville, Texas.
Some of the separated children are being reunited with their families. This according to a senior administration official who spoke with CBS News. The official estimates around 500 of the more than 2,300 separated children have been reunited. It's still unclear what will happen with the remaining children, but this same official says efforts are underway to set up a centralized reunification process.
I'm Peter King. A DNA testing company says it'll provide kits it hopes will help reunite families that were separated at the border. A California congresswoman says she contacted 23andMe after concerns the children might be sent to the wrong parents. But there's another element. The Border Patrol says it worries about adult traffickers who try to cross the border with unrelated children. 23andMe's CEO has tweeted that the company welcomes any opportunity to help.
Opponents of the administration's immigration policy protested outside the home of Homeland Security Chief Kirstjen Nielsen this morning in Virginia. A mid-Atlantic state is the latest to suffer the effects of heavy rainfall across the country this week.
Up to 5 inches of rain an hour has flooded roads, prompted dozens of high water rescues, and closed the airport in the Richmond area. Tommy Bowen's home has been heavily damaged by the flash flooding.
The house is still leaking. There's a big hole in one of the rooms, so I really don't know how much I've lost so far.
Richmond authorities are using city buses to get flood victims out of danger. Jim Crisula, CBS News.
The Roseanne reboot morphs into a spin-off this fall without its lead character. Roseanne Barr has agreed to cut all ties so castmates can carry on after ABC canceled the series over a racist tweet. Pop culture expert Robert Thompson says it could tip the show's political balance.
We've now taken the major Trump supporter out of the equation, which means what's left is the character of Roseanne's sister, played by Laurie Metcalf, who, of course, was not a Trump supporter.
The spinoff will be called The Connors. Another night of protests in East Pittsburgh over the police shooting death of an unarmed black teenager. KDKA reporter Brenda Waters says demonstrators brought traffic to a halt on a major highway.
The crowd shut down the Parkway East in both directions. At 2 a.m., police gave the protesters a warning that they had 5 minutes to disperse or face arrest.
S&P futures up 14. This is CBS News.
Zoom video conferencing, featuring video and audio clarity with screen sharing. Free accounts are available at zoom.us. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
Here's a special message for those of you who owe the IRS at least $10,000 or more in back taxes. The IRS has special programs in place that could eliminate or reduce your tax debt by thousands of dollars. With a call to National Tax Helpline, you can stop the wage garnishments, levies, and tax liens now. Once you've qualified and enrolled, the IRS will stop all the collection activities against you. These unique programs have been allocated to help the economy and significantly reduce or eliminate your tax burden. The IRS is currently accepting reduced settlements and other favorable programs. You may qualify for substantial savings, so get the help you need. If you owe the IRS $10,000 or more, call now for free information and to see if you qualify. Take down the number now for the Tax Helpline, 800-805-1055. That's 800-805-1055 for free information. 800-805-1055. That's 800-805-1055.
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. The funeral for Berkeley County Sheriff's Deputy Joaquin Moore will be tomorrow morning at 11 at Airborne Church, which will also be hosting a viewing today from 5 until 7. Moore, a school resource officer at Spring Mills High School, was killed last week in a motorcycle crash near Martinsburg. He was off duty at the time. There was a candlelight vigil held in his memory this week at Spring Mills, where Moore was also a track coach. Those in attendance did a lap of the track in his honor. The Martinsburg Police Department yesterday announced the initiation of the 28th case under the city's drug house ordinance, this time for the rental property at 507 South Raleigh Street, owned by John Oram. This is Oram's third property cited under the drug house ordinance. The drug selling operation discovered Tuesday was actually in the duplex building immediately adjacent to Oram's bail bonds business office. In addition to recovering illegal drugs, officers seized suspected drug money and recovered several firearms. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
Cool, drab, and drippy all kind of sum up the Friday forecast here as we get some periods of showers in the morning that will be tapering off, but not until probably after lunchtime into the afternoon. Our forecast high near 74. The winds coming in from the east under 10 miles per hour, and it'll stay cloudy into the evening time, and overnight will be dry for the most part, although some showers can return into the early morning, and we look for a low near 64 degrees. Tomorrow, expect a rainy start to the day, hopefully a little sunshine later afternoon as a warm front comes through. Highest temperature near 82. Then partly sunny, warm, and muggy on Sunday with a high of 86 and some scattered afternoon storms. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio WRNR.
The future doesn't wait. Why should you? Blue Ridge Community and Technical College offers over 50 degree and certificate programs in education, IT, culinary arts, engineering, and so much more. Small class sizes, flexible schedules with evening and online classes, with affordable tuition, plus financial aid is available to those who qualify. Now you can go to college. Visit us online at blueridgectc.edu. That's blueridgectc.edu. Stop waiting and enroll today.
Downtown Martinsburg is the place to be for the Fridays at 5 Summer Concert Series from June 1st through August 31st. Enjoy great music and fun with well-known musicians, bands, and Martinsburg artists that'll liven up your spirits at the town square. Concerts begin at 5 p.m. and usually last until 7. Enjoy great music while visiting Martinsburg's Farmers Market, housed on East King Street, where you're able to enjoy fresh fruits and veggies, chicken and pork, and a lot more. Pets are allowed in the square during the concerts, provided they're on a 6-foot leash or less. For the full concert Summer Series lineup, go to mainstreetmartinsburg.com.
Kids, what's the rule about running in the house?
Always run hard out of the box.
That's not what I said.
She's running third. Here comes the play at the plate. Uh-oh.
Oh, let's clean that up before Mom gets home.
Exciting baseball action and quality family time? There's a place for that. Nationals Park. Get more bang for your buck this baseball season with deals on tickets and concessions for the whole family. See you at Nationals Park, your place to run wild. Buy your tickets today at nationals.com.
Back to the program. This segment of Eastern Panhandle Talk is brought to you by Miller Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Route 9 east of Martinsburg, home with a lifetime powertrain warranty. 304-263-6540 and 304-263-6586 our telephone numbers if you'd like to be a part of the program. Rob and Dave here on a Friday with our panel of making us a total of 5. Mike Caryl, Joe Ferretti, and in the Jason Barrett chair, Sammi Brown.
And I just took a picture of her and texted it to Jason. We'll see what he has to say. Hey, Rob, before we get into our next topic, I wanted to explain why I've got half a dozen Snicker bars here. And that is because 2 weeks ago today, Sammi
hold
made...
them up so we can see them on camera.
Sammi made a reference, I have to hold some of them up, to about Snicker bars to Mike, all in good fun, of course. So my daughter Laura bought these. This was her idea.
She's such a good daughter.
But on the outside of these Snicker bars are different words. So this one would be princess, for example. And we might give some of these out today. I would imagine Sammi would be in contention for that one. Now here's one that I like. This is irritable. I think we can all guess who might get that one. Although Mike's been pretty calm, cool, collected today.
Sweet today.
He has been. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe we'll have to call Mrs. Caryl and ask her. Then we have. I had kind of thought that one of these two could be Jason's. One is wimpy, and the other one is indecisive. But he's not here today. So
see, what I like about this is when you're not here, Barrett tees off on you, and this is the first time you've really answered back.
I have like a year of stuff to get back at him on. So yeah, he's always very mean to me. I've been telling you how mean he is to me.
Very mean to you.
And then saucy, that could be you if you go on a rant today. One of those little saucy rant that you go on. And so yeah, I don't know where Joe would fit into this today. But we'll find out. Maybe you'll get Princess, Joe. You do look nice today.
Oh, he does.
Yes.
Princess.
Yeah.
Joe
I
looks
think I'll
very
pass.
handsome today.
There's something about that, Dave. I don't know.
That's like last week. I told Mike Caryl before we went on the show that, and these are the words I used. I said, Jason and I have the same hairdresser.
Oh, yeah.
And Mike looks me in the eye and says, I have a barber. Like, ooh, okay.
Super machismo.
Yeah, there it is.
Got a couple of texts during the break here, and one is from our loyal listener, Tom, who said to remind everybody that so far the man has not been convicted of anything. There have been indictments, 22 in fact, but with this all going on, we should remember that he is innocent until proven guilty. That's talking about former Justice Loffrey. Then and only then should the questions be answered.
That's fair, Tom.
All right. And
I think that starts to get at the question that ultimately that I'm trying to find out there in the court of opinion, public opinion, how is this playing? Or do people even care? I mean, we care because we like to talk about politics. Do generally speaking, do the folks out there, average folks, are they following
Do
this
they even
issue?
know? Do they even know the details?
Now, if we lived in a media market, perhaps like Charleston, where it's on 3 different network TV stations, we might be better informed about some of these state issues. But that's my curiosity on this whole thing.
Our audience knows.
Yeah.
I think it's so extreme that I think a lot of people across the state
I would imagine
are
you're
very
right.
aware of this, and he will. It will be tough to find an independent jury if he actually goes to trial. My prediction is this will be settled with a plea bargain.
So here's an issue that a lot of people might end up caring about. Mike, big decision in the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday.
Yes, case South Dakota versus Wayfair, which is a internet seller, and the question was whether these remote sellers, as they are called, who don't have any physical presence in a state, have to collect sales tax when they're selling through the internet and with Amazon delivery and all this, the sales tax of the purchaser's home state. And for a long time, there's been a case that's been followed called Quill that says that you have to have a vendor has to have a physical presence in a state before the state can impose its sales tax collection responsibility on that vendor. And the 5-4 decision reversed Quill and eliminated the physical presence requirement, which means that states can require remote sellers who have no physical presence in a particular state to collect the sales tax on sales to the residents of that state. I was absolutely shocked at Governor Justice's statement about this. This shows how abysmally ignorant he is of tax law, certainly, and basic tax law. I'm not talking about anything esoteric. This tax, he said that we're not going to impose it. We're not going to take advantage of this. We're not going to impose this tax on our people. Well, they already owe it. It's under the law. They owe it, and the vendors. But it's very difficult to collect it because you're
on the honor system.
Exactly. And a couple of years ago he wanted to impose $500 million more tax on all of us, and now he won't. He says he won't enforce a tax that it's been in the books since the 30s. It's just ridiculous. Now, the vendors argued forever that the administrative complexity of complying with this, because there are more than 50 sales tax imposing jurisdictions. In fact, in West Virginia, there's a couple dozen cities. Of course, the state administers.
City of Martinsburg has an additional 1%.
City of Martinsburg does. And that was a decent. It was a practical argument, but it was a decent one. And it's always under whether states can affect interstate commerce. Mm-hmm. And for years there's been effort in Congress, because Congress could make this a clear rule that they have to do it under the power to regulate interstate commerce. But I have a proposal that I actually had in the Fair 55 plan, and I've developed it further, that could both assure collection and avoid completely the administrative hassles that these vendors have. And that's something I'm calling a progressive, credible, implied purchases tax. And right now, the IRS has tables that when if you're doing itemized deductions, that you can choose to either deduct your state income tax or state sales tax. And if you choose state sales tax, they have tables that are based on the tax rates in each state, and they're based on family size and income.
So if you have a family of four, you make $75,000 a year. They have a table there that says you probably spend about this much in sales tax.
Yeah, that's right. It's assumed that you have, and it's based on huge database and sampling and everything.
Algorithms probably.
Right, and it's updated. And they have some real serious private company actually does the work.
And the alternative to that is actually to get your receipts all together.
Get your receipts, yeah. Right. And so my idea is that each state, and you could just do a % of that federal table amount, it would be progressive because, the higher your income, the more it is, the larger your family, the more it is. But you could just do a % of that figure and then send a statement, saying you owe this much based on your income tax return, your family size, and your income level. And the taxpayer could then, if they, had the receipts, claim a credit for what they actually did pay. That makes it creditable. I don't think you want to get into refunds, just zero it out. And I really believe that is the way to avoid all the administrative hassles and all the litigation, because different states are going to have different approaches to how to. A lot of them will follow the South Dakota model, which has exemptions for sellers under
a certain level,
under 100,000, and so forth. And that's part of why it was an ideal case for the states, because the court opinion talks about how this is a reasonable approach, and it's upheld. It's constitutional. So a lot of states will, but some states will go too far, and this is a way that an individual state doesn't have to wait for Congress to have finally figure things out and have a uniform rule, and they don't have to get into the hassles. You could actually, and you're not going to eliminate the obligation of any vendor, in state or out of state, to collect tax in these circumstances, but it will assure that there'll be a lot of the tax that isn't being paid now will be paid, and it's owed. And one last thing, the Wall Street Journal above the fold this morning had a map showing the states that would most benefit from this ruling. West Virginia was second in the nation. It would be a 4% increase in its sales tax revenue per these experts' study, and the governor doesn't want that.
So I really attempted to stay as quiet as possible throughout that, because
how did that work for you, Sam?
This was a monumental moment where I agreed with Mike.
All right. Do we have some music we could play for that?
Please. You had me.
Kumbaya, right?
You had me at justice, and then you just went on down. And then you had a progressive tax policy, Mike. Seriously, beautiful. I
know what it takes to sell stuff, but it's the right thing.
I appreciate it.
It absolutely is the right thing, and the way you could make it even more progressive is, which is in the Fair 55 plan, is that you only apply it to people whose incomes over $50,000 or something like that.
My goodness.
So I didn't actually use it to add, to build a revenue base. I just used it as an example originally to respond to the border competition argument that we were hearing about eliminating some exemptions, and of course the Senate wanted to raise the rate itself. I don't think we need to raise the rate, but the border competition arguments you always get about expanding the base of your sales tax, and this would absolutely deal with this, because you would get a credit against this implied purchases tax for sales tax paid in West Virginia or in any
Well, let me ask
other
you,
state.
the Supreme Court says you can do it now. Is it up to each individual state's delegation to determine if they want this enacted?
Well, if they yes,
like you said, it's already the law.
it's in the statutes of many states now. They just because of the Quill case, they couldn't aggressively enforce it.
Right.
But a lot of states already have some scheme. West Virginia does too, or there'll be a lot of pressure for Congress to do a uniform rule structure that all states would follow.
I'm reading this out of the today's CNBC article on this very topic, and it says, this is pretty blunt, if you've been ducking sales tax for your online purchases, it's game over.
Maybe though.
So
I mean, but if you're Amazon, let's just pick a place where you buy something online that everybody goes to, and you've got this software program that figures out the sales tax for all 17,000 different sales taxes around the country, and West Virginia's delegation does not pass something that allows this to happen. Does Amazon then take your figure out? I mean, how does
No.
how does it work?
They already collect sales tax.
Yeah, I don't think Amazon's a different story because they have a physical presence in virtually every state, so they collect for sales for their own account. But when they're just the agent, the selling agent, and the actual vendor does not have a presence in West Virginia, then they don't collect West Virginia tax. But we don't need to pass any laws to start that happening. We need to just actively enforce, and Amazon will enforce it. I mean, they'll be required to, and these vendors will have to cooperate.
So whether Governor Justice wants it or not, every so often he's going to get a check from these online sites that goes to the West Virginia Treasury.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Whether he wants the money or not.
Yes.
Okay. So
I mean,
it's really out of the legislature's control.
Now, assuming that, I mean, there's certainly mechanics and administrative details that need to to start the money flowing for sure, and that's why a congressional initiative to set uniform rules would be good for the vendors as well as the states. But my proposal, any state can do it, and it doesn't matter what anybody else does.
Mike, how can we hyper-localize this argument? So if we're talking about, say, the Eastern Panhandle and the individual buyer, and especially in Jefferson and Berkeley County, where the median income is around $60,000 to $70,000 per household. Yeah. At that point, how do we sell that to folks, especially here, and then the individual consumer, saying, especially because we have an electorate right now that is very anti-tax. They do not want to be taxed.
Well, they owe the tax now, first of all.
Right.
They absolutely owe it. They've been ducking the taxes, as David read there. And the in-state vendors will be our best friends. And they got to be really shocked at what the governor said.
Well, I think the brick and mortar store owners really support this too, because it levels the playing field for them.
Exactly. And that's it's just stunning to me the governor did that. I can't remember.
The governor doesn't get to decide that all by himself, though, does he?
Well, how vigorous they pursue it, in theory, but hopefully cooler heads will prevail. The current tax commissioner is a guy that knows everything I know.
Who was the governor trying to please in that announcement? Who was the governor trying to please in that, I wonder? It sounds to me like everyone would be against him.
I think it was a superficial, knee-jerk thought that here I can be
Jim Justice would have a superficial knee-jerk thought.
Here I can look like a good guy and say, "Oh no, I'm not going to put that tax on our people." I mean, I think it's nothing more complicated than that. And one other thing that Sammi will be pleased to know, the justices who voted for it included, I think I've got this right, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sotomayor, I think. And who's the other young lady?
Kagan.
Kagan. Maybe not Kagan, but I know at least those two liberals, and then Clarence Thomas was part of the majority.
But it was a 5-4 decision.
It was 5-4.
So it was close. You had 4 people going against this.
Kennedy and Gorsuch. That was it. Gorsuch and Thomas, Ginsburg and Sotomayor and Kennedy.
Yeah, like Mike Folks said, we live in interesting times.
You mentioned who would be against this. I would guess people who spend money online would be against it. I mean, do you want to be charged 6% more than what you're currently being charged for many of your online purchases?
You want to pay the taxes you owe. I mean, anybody that actively, openly opposes this is calling for tax cheating.
I think that's an aggressive way of putting something that you haven't been charged a tax for your entire lifetime.
You owe the tax. In fact,
and I would guarantee you 99% of the people who buy things online don't know they owe the tax on it.
Well, you could be right about that, because the vendor, doesn't.
And even if you know you owe it, I bet you nobody knows how to pay it.
Well, you can. It used to be, and I don't know. They may have backed away from this. They used to have on your income tax return, and I think they may still have about use. If you paid your use tax, and if not, send it in. That's obviously not very effective, and doesn't really. So there needs to be an educational campaign. I agree with that. But I remember Governor Caperton had a press release where he announced that. First of all, they announced they were going after, retail consumer purchases from out of state, not paying the use tax, and he actually put out a press release saying the use tax will only be enforced against businesses. I still have that.
This is only a slightly related question, but I'm going to ask it because you're here and you probably know the answer. And I haven't done this in many, many years, but I used to do it a lot, and that would be I'd buy men's clothing at a shop I liked in Virginia. And I'd try all my clothes, and I'd get it all the way I liked it. And then they would box it up and send it to me in West Virginia, and I wouldn't have to pay tax because I wasn't taking it with me out of the store in Virginia.
The sale wasn't
So you were a tax cheat.
No,
the rule is
they chose not to charge me tax on that
I
merchandise.
think Mike Carl's calling you a tax cheat.
The rule is that the tax is owed where the sale was completed, and if delivering it to your home was a necessary aspect of the sale, which is this is the fiction that the tax lawyers use.
This would be a very vague area. Then
it's a West Virginia taxable situation, not a Virginia tax.
Okay, so it wasn't their problem. My responsibility should have been to report that sale to the state of West Virginia.
But again,
I think I did that when you were tax commissioner, by the way, a lot.
Well,
tax cheat.
We'll let slide.
You go. Okay.
This segment brought to you by Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies. When it comes to your home, auto, farm, or business, we're trusted, reliable, and experienced at Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies.
People stopping still. I can't see their faces, only the shadows of their eyes.
It's the Jeep Celebration event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Martinsburg. Stop in now for great deals on a great line of Jeep products. Get $1,000 cash back on a 2019 Jeep Cherokee with financing at 0% for 60 months. How about a new 2019 Cherokee Latitude 4x4, only $219 a month, or a 2018 Jeep Wrangler JK for only $296 a month. Get bonus cash up to $6,000 off a 2018 Renegade, plus $500 trade. Stop by and test drive a Chrysler Pacifica and get free movie passes. It's all at the Jeep Celebration event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty on Kelly Island Road, or online at millerschryslerjeep.com. All payments based on approved credit, taxes, tags, and processing fees extra. See dealer for details.
This is Joe Ferretti of Hammer, Ferretti & Schiavone. The laws are changing drastically in West Virginia, and more than ever, you'll need an attorney with a reputation and a history of good results handling your personal injury claim. At my law firm, each attorney has at least 28 years of experience winning cases. Ask about our reputation and history of proven results. We know these comparisons will convince you to call Hammer, Ferretti & Schiavone at 264-8505. Call for a free meeting to discuss your case. And of course, you can find us on the web at hfslawyers.com.
WVU Medicine welcomes Dr. Sarika Bagri to the staff at WVU Medicine Primary Care Inwood. Dr. Bagri is board certified in internal medicine and is now accepting new patients at Primary Care Inwood, conveniently located at 5047 Gerrardstown Road, Suite 2B in the Inwood Medical Building. For more information or to schedule an appointment with Dr. Bagri, call WVU Medicine Primary Care Inwood at 304-229-6343. 304-229-6343.
This segment of our show brought to you by Bechtel Jewelers, West Virginia's largest Pandora retailer, Route 11 South Inwood, next to Viva Mexico. Our intern is Savant Hunter. Our producer today, Sherry Dieter Davis. And our telephone number is 304-263-6540 and 304-263-6586. You can catch a replay of the show on WRNR's TV channel on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, put in WRNR TV. About noon, it's uploaded and ready for viewing. And also, of course, you can catch us live on Comcast Cable TV Channel 10 in Berkeley and in Jefferson County every day between 8 and 10. And you can get our audio replays online at talkradiowrnr.com, and you can link to it off of our Facebook page, too.
And if you go on our Facebook right now, you can see a very dear picture of Sammi Brown and Mike Caryl looking like they're like father-daughter. Looks like a family picture.
That's nice.
Loving on each other
Just
like that.
so nice.
Yeah, look at him blushing.
Peace has been restored.
I've never seen Mike
WRNR.
Caryl blush before. There you go.
We've had, on Monday, we started the week with Rob Cornelius, the Republican chair of of Wood County, and he was on the program talking about Justice Lawfrey, but also talking about Governor Justice and bringing impeachment proceedings against Governor Justice for many things, not the least of which is the governor is not fulfilling his constitutional obligation to live at the seat of power, which most people would interpret as Charleston and living in the mansion. And there's been quite a lot of discussion about whether or not the governor has been effective in leading the state through many of the crises that the state is currently bearing, which includes flood relief and the parking of $150 million, which is just, I understand, the tip of the iceberg. That's not the whole pie. That's just the part of it that's federal-related, and some of the misuse of this money or not use of at all. And Joe Ferretti, I ask you this question. Do you think, from what you've seen, and this is obviously an impeachment-heavy show we're talking here, but does
the
Rob
theme of the day?
Everyone's getting fired. Everyone's out.
We need Donald Trump in here. Wait, does Rob Cornelius have a point? Is the governor somebody who's ripe for impeachment based on the things that you've heard so far, the complaints about the governor not living in at the mansion, not having a good handle on what's going on in the state, not performing the duties effectively that he's been assigned to perform?
It's clear, Rob, the long knives are out for the governor, and I think it's on both sides of the aisle to some respect.
Does he not know he's public enemy number one?
I have heard that Republicans are not happy with him.
But look, this is a violation of the West Virginia Constitution, which specifies that the governor shall reside at the seat of government. And we know the seat of government is in Charleston, and he's living over in Lewisburg, I guess.
Right.
So
where all the flood relief was needed but wasn't applied.
I might add to this, Joe, to what you're saying, and just to put into the mix here, is that yesterday Delegate Isaac Spinagle filed actually a lawsuit in state court against the governor for not residing in the seat of government. And so now there's an impeachment move and a lawsuit.
All right, and he is on record as admitting that he is not living in Charleston. Right. He made the case the other day that he is saving the state money because he's not doing laundry, he's not eating in Charleston, he's not throwing mansion parties over there in the governor's mansion. So it's actually frugality that has him living in his home area instead of Charleston. I think it's hard to accept this. He's just thumbing his nose at his constitutional obligations. And given that he has been absent on so many levels in terms of what we need in a governor, I think this is a important issue that needs to be fleshed out. If it has to be in the courts, so be it. But I think he has invited this on himself, Rob, and I think it's going to be important that there be some resolution as to where this guy needs to park his fanny, so to speak, so that he can maybe do this state's work.
Sammi, you are a prospective member of the legislature. The Democrats are not making as much noise as some of the Republicans are making right now. Again, Rob Cornelius is the Republican Party chairman in Wood County, and he's the one bringing this up.
No, I'm really surprised to hear that, but I think he really hits on a few things, and if I could expand on that, it's really about accountability. So who is actually running our government at this point? Who is the head of West Virginia? If he's not there in Charleston, if he's at the Greenbrier hanging out, who's running our government?
Some say Bray Cary.
Well, is it Bray? Because I really want to know. I want to know who's running our government at this point.
Sammi, you bring up a very good point, and to continue your thought, but I just want to affirm that because, and I hadn't really thought of it in that light before, because frankly, up until like just maybe 24 hours ago, I didn't really care much about this issue, to tell you the truth, because we do live in a society where we telecommute. I mean, I work in my business a day or two at home, and I don't lose. In fact, I probably get more done because I'm not stuck on I-270 traffic. So, I mean, I get all that, but still, he's the guy elected, right?
Exactly.
Not any of the people that he appoints, although appointed people have roles to play, and especially in a part-time legislature. So I think your argument's valid. I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference between you and I, Dave, and I work remote, that's why I get to hang out with you guys sometimes on Fridays,
Sweet.
you know, is that we're not elected to governor. We didn't run or to govern this great state of West Virginia, and that was his premise.
And if you're a state delegate, you don't get to stay home and call your vote in.
No,
Right?
exactly. I have to be there for 60 days, and then during interim. So when it comes to it, the people put you there. That is the people's capital. You need to represent them at this point.
Now, Mike Caryl just had a slight heart attack when you assumed that you would be there and not Jill Upson. I just want you to know. But
that's right.
He loves you, but he doesn't love you that much.
He's allowed to hold his breath on that. That's fine. That's fine.
And that red was, I was just telegraphing my party affiliation.
That means Sammi turns
well
blue
done.
and cheek. Okay.
Exactly. No, I really do. I glow.
There you go.
But, well, you know, I'm all for impeaching Justice, because then Mitch Carmichael will become
There
governor.
you go. That's another good. I think he would be a
so much better governor.
Far better
than
governor.
Justice, I can't tell you. So I'm all for it.
I haven't seen any polling numbers, although I would love to talk about that at some point on the Senate side if we have time. But I don't know what public opinion is on Governor Justice, but I have a feeling it can't be all that great right now.
He's the least popular government official we have right now.
I would believe that, but I haven't seen anything.
Well, and look, you can draw some parallels between his conduct and that of Justice Lawfrey here. Okay, they get in a position of power, and they just think that whatever they do is fine. And
Thank you.
You can't have that kind of hubris where you just get into office and think, I know what the Constitution requires, I know what the West Virginia Code requires, and I know what my job requires, but I don't care. I'm going to stay here at home. There's just a certain amount of hubris
speaking
there.
here's a comparison. Why is it in West Virginia that 2/3 of the people love Donald Trump, and I would argue 2/3 of the people really don't care very much about Jim Justice? And the comparisons between the two in style have been made now for over 2 years.
Absolutely. Well, but Donald Trump, and I don't think the Constitution calls for the president to live in the seat of government expressly, but he does live in the White House. He works hard. The difference, there are similarities between the two in their business practices and
They're both billionaires. Okay, let's go from
there.
there.
Billionaires. But the difference is energy and working hard, and
no one can doubt that Donald Trump doesn't work hard. However, he's always working hard.
Well, and the other thing, initially, I thought this live in the seat of government was just kind of throwaway, Right. But
that's how I was my
David,
thinking
I want to
too.
give you a huge amount of credit, because you brought up a comparison of a legislator having to be physically present in the Capitol building to vote, and so I think a court could actually, compare those two and say that's comparable, so it is a serious requirement.
So here's another question I'll throw out. If you've got this, how much impeachment do the citizens of West Virginia tolerate at one time? You've got parallel to Rob kidded about this, but there's some irony to it as well. If you've got an impeachment track, possibly with the state Supreme Court justice and the governor going on at one time, at some point do the people of West Virginia say, "Yikes, that's choose one"?
Right.
But we're not going to go down both of these roads.
We don't need,
of course, they could be efficient and do it at the same time. Right?
If we've discussed it, I don't think impeachment is necessary, in the case of Lawfrey, but nobody's accusing Justice of stealing anything or lying about, to a federal investigator. So, or coaching a witness in a
Well, he didn't get a chance
case.
to lie. He steered right into it.
But so I think impeachment, is the the lead remedy for the.
Well,
justice.
here's my political read on this. I don't think the Democrats really want to impeach Jim Justice. I think they'd much rather have him running for re-election in 2 years, so they could run against a weak Republican nominee. Now, my thought on that is he probably won't run again.
I don't think we're assuming that he's going to run again either. And in fact, I'll go on record advising, please don't.
Okay. Yeah. For the good of all of us.
I love my state too much.
Delegate
Please don't.
Mike Folk texted to say that if Justice was removed or decided to resign as governor, there would be a special election before 2020 if he has not completed his third year yet.
There would be a special election.
Yeah, because he had not completed his third year. If he does it too soon.
But in the meantime.
So Mitch Carmichael would not succeed him unless it was after he got into his
He would have to succeed him for at least a while.
He would succeed him until the election.
Next day. You can't go.
Oh, well, temporarily, but he would not fill out the term.
He would be acting governor. We'd be like Illinois or New Jersey and have like multiple governors.
Rod Blagojevich.
When Manchin became senator, we went through that drill. So,
well, let me pick up on what Mike said, though. If the governor is in Lewisburg and he's conducting business affairs that pertain to him solely, his own businesses, rather than in Charleston doing the state's business, he is stealing from the state.
Because?
Because he's taking time away from his duties as the leader of the state government, and he's putting it towards his own personal business.
Joe, how do you
I think
prove
that's
that?
one of the reasons why he's sitting in Lewisburg.
But how do you prove that? What is? I'm not really sure. What's the protocol in which to prove that he's doing one business over the other?
And it might be hard to prove. He could easily say, listen, if I'm promoting the Greenbrier brings in tourists and revenue for the state, I'm promoting the state.
If he were working on his own businesses to the benefit of the state, like you're suggesting, he'd pay his taxes. He'd get those companies
he would pay his taxes.
He'd get those companies to pay their taxes.
Though.
Yeah, I mean, and that to me could be article, count number one of a impeachment proceeding.
Well, we discussed this a bit last week, and I guess the question I have on the taxes is there a dispute as to whether he actually really owes that amount of money? Is that what's holding up the payment of those taxes?
No.
He concurs he owes that much money?
Yes. Essentially. I mean, they could be quibbling about some small amount differences, that you could always do that when something, that big and complicated. But there are liens filed. Process the assessments are final. There are liens filed. He owes the money, period.
Well, the bottom line in all this is if he was doing a good job, he wouldn't be inviting this scrutiny. But when you have flood relief activities, which are in shambles, Woody Thrasher gets booted because of it, and the state government, the sense of things is it's not running well, and he's really not putting a lot of effort into it. Even when he speaks on behalf of the state, he doesn't have prepared remarks. I mean, this is anecdotal, but Rob, if he was doing a good job, the scrutiny wouldn't be there. But it is there because he's not doing a good job, so he invites this on himself to a large degree here.
And how much of this backfires on the Democrats, Sammy? You guys are the folks that elected this guy governor. He was in your party. The Republicans wanted Bill Cole. It was the Democrats that put this guy in office.
Sure. I mean, I understand that scrutiny, and I will go on record. That was not my choice in the primary. So,
but it was your choice in the general, I bet.
I mean, he was the only guy I had on the ticket. So,
you had Bill Cole would have been 10 times better than this guy.
I doubt it, Mike. I doubt it.
Let me tell you, I know Bill Cole, and he'd be 10 times better than this guy.
Man. But the fact of the matter is, he switched parties, and he said that he ideologically aligns with your party, Mike Caryl. So I'd have to say that. I've washed my hands of Jim Justice.
Going Pontius Pilate on us. Interesting.
I don't like people who change parties after getting elected by one party. I just think that's just
that's my
illegal
deal.
about it, obviously.
Of course, that's how the Republicans took control of the Senate.
I just don't.
Engineered by Bill Cole.
I just don't like it.
Hey, 304-263-6540 and 304-263-6586, our telephone numbers. Getting a lot of texts, by the way, and feel free to call in as opposed to texting me, and that makes me your voice be your own voice. Give us a call, 304-263-6540. This segment brought to you this morning by L.A. Roberts Jewelers, committed to excellence in quality design and craftsmanship at a start, downtown Martinsburg.
L.A. Roberts Delegates is Berkeley County's oldest jeweler, where every season is new and exciting. In fact, new is old school to us, and though it's nothing new, our old traditions like exceptional service, quality, and value maintain L.A. Roberts Jewelers as the old master among so many new kids on the block. Whether you're a newcomer or part of the old guard, entrust all your fine jewelry needs to L.A. Roberts, Old World Jewelers for a new age, in historic downtown Martinsburg.
Since 1877, Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies have proudly supported our local community. Farmers and Mechanics has the insurance products to meet your needs, including home, auto, farm, dwelling fire, business owners, and umbrella coverage. Please contact your local independent agency for a review of your insurance needs and ask for a policy from the company that knows you best. Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies, just off Edwin Miller Boulevard on Administrative Drive in Martinsburg. FMIWV.com.
Possibilities are all around us. We see potential in unexpected places. And when we share our knowledge, vision, and connections, we turn great ideas into action in communities all around the world. Together, we can make real change happen. We're Rotary. We are people of action. Get involved at Rotary.org.
Little League All-Star Baseball.
Ball, 2-strike delivery, high bouncer over the head of the pitcher, off the glove of the shortstop, caroms down into right center field, and that will allow a run to score.
The West Virginia District 6 Area 1 10 to 12-year-old All-Star Tournament begins on Friday with the host South Berkeley All-Stars taking on the Martinsburg All-Stars. Friday's first pitch is at 6, our pregame 5:45 p.m. on Talk Radio WRNR, your local leader in talk, news, sports.
That other voice belongs to Catherine Donovan. Catherine, good morning. Is this your radio debut?
It is. I'm a virgin.
Congratulations.
We've never had anyone tell us that before on this show.
I congratulate you.
Thank you for the confession.
On lasting this long. Yes. There's a lot of temptations out there in the world to go on radio stations, and you've avoided all of them.
I've only seen Rob blush maybe 2 or 3 times before, but you just did it. Congratulations.
Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and David. What did you listen to last week?
Welcome back to the program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave, and the Friday crew today. Mike, Caryl, Joe Ferretti, and Sammi Brown is here as well. This segment brought to you by the Brown Funeral Homes and Cremations, Robert Fields and Sons, family-owned and full service, proudly serving our area since 1880, David Welch.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about, Rob, the poll that was released by Monmouth University, which is a credible outfit. They've been polling for many, many decades, and it's ironically a university out of New Jersey. The poll comes out with Morrissey at and on the race for U.S. Senate between Manchin and Morrissey, showing that the incumbent, Senator Joe Manchin, has a lead of 48 to 39, which I would think is a fairly significant lead in June of an election year. I mean, if you're for Morrissey, you would love to have that. And just sort of interested in what everybody thinks of this. Is this race over? Is this what does Morrissey have to do? Is this lead, given the fact that so many of the sample, they polled 653 West Virginia voters, and 2/3 of them are from the 3rd Congressional District. About 420 of them are from the 3rd Congressional District. Your thought on that? Is this a legitimate poll, Mike Caryl?
I don't see how it could be, because clearly Morrissey's strength is in the 1st and 2nd districts, the north of the state. That's how he beat Jenkins in the primary, and I don't see how you can adjust for that. Bias. I mean, I'd be stunned if Manchin wasn't somewhat ahead. Now the numbers you gave included 4 or 5% for Blankenship, and you take him out, and it narrows the Manchin's lead somewhat, but he's still, based on that poll, he's still got a healthy lead at this time in the race. But I just don't buy that the poll was fair because it left out 2/3 of the state. Or I'm sorry,
the sample size is not as big. They claim, Monmouth University claims that the statewide poll has a margin of error statewide of 3.8%. So let's call it somewhere around a 4% margin of error. What that means, if you're looking at a 48 to 39 lead, it could mean, if it's a 4% margin of error, 4 points on each side could make this, in actuality, a deadlocked race right now at around 45%.
Particularly if you took Blankenship out of it. It might even put Morrissey ahead.
It shows clearly that Blankenship on the general election ballot probably going to run around 4%. 99% of those votes are coming out of voters that would otherwise vote for Morrissey. So it is to Manchin's advantage to have Blankenship on the ballot.
And the Republican Party is fighting that tooth and nail. You can be assured of that. Whether he'll be on the ballot is still a significant legal question.
So, Sammi, do you agree with me? This is a neck-and-neck race, basically, is what this shows.
No, I absolutely think that it's a neck-and-neck race. The other part, too, is that I think we need to come to terms with a rebranding of the Democratic Party in the 3rd District. You have a really, really strong congressional candidate that's running down there.
Yes,
he is wildly popular, and he's tapped into a populist message, which means that helps everyone on the Democratic ticket. Top and bottom
in the 3rd district.
In the 3rd district. So especially if
does that translate then into possibly some gains in the legislative races as well in the 3rd district? Or do the Republicans have all of them now? I'm not even sure.
Right. I mean, I can't imagine that there won't be some pickups around him. And it's because he's actually run very much in a slate-like manner. He's gone and stumped for legislative seats, for Senate seats. He's really gone and spread around this energy. So it really hasn't been that focus. But I will say that, especially if the cross-section is mostly based in the 3rd congressional district, it doesn't surprise me that it favors Manchin. I will also say, because we don't know what's going on with Blankenship, you're right, it would behoove the Republican Party to make sure that man's not on the ticket.
This poll also shows that Donald Trump continues to be very popular in West Virginia. He has a 66% approval rating statewide, in which 49% of those polled strongly approve of his job performance. So Morrissey's running well below the popularity of Trump, which suggests to me, as a matter of strategy, and I'm sure Pat Morrissey knows this as well, that he needs for this to be in the Senate race really a referendum on Donald Trump as much as he needs it to be a vote between Morrissey and Manchin. If Morrissey can make this a referendum on Donald Trump, in other words, I support Donald Trump more than Manchin does, then he has a clear, I think, advantage in November.
The president will be here once and maybe twice during this campaign. And
I would suspect you're probably right.
And that's going to be huge for Morrissey. But again,
by the way, Mike, along those lines, 41% of those polled said Manchin has not been supportive enough of the president.
Right.
Well, and voting against the tax cut by itself is it's got to take 8 or 10 points off of Manchin's number.
Have you all seen the new Manchin ad on television? Sammi, have you seen that? His first ad out of the box on television statewide is telling West Virginia voters that he voted for Donald Trump's wall. I thought that was a very interesting first vote out of the box to be make sure he's telling West Virginians that he supported Donald Trump's number one issue.
There's a counter ad that says just the opposite. So there's a credibility issue.
An ad on the other side.
I mean, and strategically speaking, though, if you're going to go back and speak to your constituency, knowing your stance now with the recent immigration reform and the executive order, and you calling for the man to take a different stance on what was going on at what are the words I'm looking for? For asylum, then yes, you're going to have to make that statement if you are looking to speak to this poll.
In fact, I think that Manchin ad is a response to the one that's being run with a tape of Joe's voice saying, "No, I'm against the wall."
You might be right. It just happened. I haven't seen that ad. I was watching. I was having dinner the other night.
The more I think about it, because I've seen the other one, for a week or so, and they have Joe's voice saying, "I'm against the wall."
I have to wonder what's going on in that office that was what he decided to come out on. Of all the things that are truly impactful for the state of West Virginia, we are not a border state. Why did we need to talk about a wall? On top of that, if we want to talk about kitchen table issues and an infrastructure allotment that will be going towards the wall, why aren't you talking about restoring roads or accessibility or even e-commerce? Why aren't we talking about those things? So, I mean, at the risk of sounding like I'm playing devil's advocate against my own senator, I need to understand why you aren't saying these things as opposed to the wall.
You need to keep busy with your own campaign, because I'm afraid if you went down to Washington and gave them some advice, they'd wise up.
Well, and I agree. I don't understand what the wall does for West Virginia.
Right.
The only wall I've ever heard of is the wall that Virginia wants to erect between Virginia and West Virginia. But I wonder, we've talked about Donald Trump's going to definitely be in this state, Trump campaigning for Morrissey, but who is going to get behind Manchin? Mm-hmm. Who's going to come in, has a national perspective?
Hillary.
No.
Hillary will come in.
That's not happening.
Schumer? Pelosi? Bring them on.
Hillary's going to come in for the congressional campaign where one of her former staffers is running against Mooney, and she's going to come in on the behalf of Manchin.
I will bet you a lunch that will never happen.
That will not happen, Rob.
But I just wonder
she's the party leader.
No,
absolutely
she's not.
not.
She's yesterday's news.
She doesn't know that.
Who's going to come in and really have a national reputation here and a scope and
probably no one, because clearly
he's on his own.
The most popular Democrat in West Virginia.
They're going to
Bernie.
The most popular.
She better bring ID because no one's going to know who she is.
The most popular Democrat in West Virginia is Joe Manchin. The most popular Republican in West Virginia is not Pat Morrissey. So Pat Morrissey is helped by a Donald Trump coming in tremendously. Joe Manchin's on his own, as he should be, because he's Joe Manchin.
Right.
I think what I also see in this poll is, as well, and I've got this as kind of a really sort of a toss-up lean Republican race. At the end of the day, it would be my prediction that Patrick Morrissey probably wins this race, given the entire dynamic of the campaign as it unfolds. I think he's going to have to fight for it, work for it. He is a hard worker, and God knows he's a fighter. But there's something that also tells me that out there throughout West Virginia, there still is a likability factor here, that people do like Joe Manchin.
They do.
And West Virginians, more so than any state that I've ever worked in before, for whatever reason, are able to see through issues. In other words, they're the kind of voters that can say, if you'll use Ferretti here, I really don't believe what Joe Ferretti is campaigning on here. I disagree with him on issues. But I just like Joe Ferretti. I trust Joe Ferretti, and I like the guy, and that's why I'm going to vote for him. West Virginia voters I think the question is, will enough West Virginia voters give Joe Manchin a pass for not being as conservative or on the left as liberal as the left might want him to be, and just say, he's been there, I like him, I trust him, I'm going to vote for him.
I think the most powerful...
Good, you got 20 seconds. Go ahead.
I think the most powerful statement that he could have made and that the campaign has made was the I Know Joe campaign as a caveat into what he's going into. It very much speaks to the fact that this is his home, his family's been here, that you know him on a very personal level. He's the same guy that goes behind at the state fair and puts things in the grease trap and he shakes hands. He's very much your retail politician.
That could be his salvation.
That is the win.
Final thoughts coming up next.
Try to set the night on fire.
It's that time of year for loud bangs. No, not just thunderstorms, but fireworks. The city of Martinsburg reminds you that even though West Virginia State Code permits the sale of fireworks, discharging them within city limits is prohibited. And this Martinsburg City Ordinance is in force all year long. Set off fireworks within the city of Martinsburg and you're risking a fine of $500, 30 days in jail, or both. Don't risk it. The discharge of fireworks within city limits is against the law. If you see or hear fireworks being discharged, call the Martinsburg Police Department at 304-264-2100. That's 304-264-2100. Remember, it's against the law to set off fireworks in the city of Martinsburg today and every day. This message paid for by the city of Martinsburg.
All right, around the horn with final thoughts. We start with Sammi Brown.
I think we've restored peace here at WRNR. So I will say that maybe our final thought will be that no matter where you are on the political spectrum, we can always find common ground.
Mike Caryl.
To David's point about likability maybe carry the election, Evan Jenkins was clearly more likable personally than Patrick Morrissey, despite my support for Patrick, and that didn't work out.
Joe Ferretti.
As a Penguins fan, the Washington Caps are already starting to screw up their post-Stanley Cup phase by losing their coach.
David
Go
Welch.
get him.
Shout out for a play being held tonight in Shepherdstown Reynolds Hall, A Face in the Crowd featuring old Kinks music being put on by the kids at St. Agnes. I will be there. Hope to see you
It's
too.
10 o'clock. Have a great weekend. This is Talk Radio WRNR Martinsburg. Glenn Beck is next.
CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by TheraWorks Relief.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. Reunifications begin for families separated at the border.
What did you tell your mom when you saw her for the first time?
But I love her. A 7-year-old hugs his mother for the first time in more than a month. He's one of 500 children the administration says have been reunited with their families since a policy change this week. Officials say they're trying to help 1,800 others separated at the border. Wendy Young runs a nonprofit group that provides legal help.
Sometimes what we found is that little information that the government has collected on the children may be inaccurate. They get the name slightly off, they get the date of birth slightly off. So clearly nothing was thought through.
House Republicans aren't giving up on immigration reform legislation. Correspondent Stephen Portnoy.
After the House voted to reject the immigration overhaul that most closely matches the president's demands, GOP leaders pulled a compromise bill seen as more moderate, the indication being it too lacks the necessary support to pass. Leaders said they'd work over the weekend to tweak the bill, but on Twitter, President Trump says they should stop wasting their time and wait for the red wave he forecasts in November.
A new study finds a possible link between herpes and Alzheimer's.
Researchers say it's not proof, but after studying hundreds of brains, there was a common denominator.
We unexpectedly found that the genes that turned up were genes from herpes viruses.
Mount Sinai neurologist Dr. Sam Gandy is the study's lead author. He says they found viral genetic material at much higher levels in Alzheimer's patients' brains than in others. What's not clear is if the virus actually causes Alzheimer's. More research, he says, could show that antiviral medicines could help prevent the disease. Peter King, CBS News.
U.S. whiskey makers brace for a drop in business as the EU's retaliatory tariffs kick in today. Justin Thompson co-owns a bourbon house in Lexington, Kentucky.
Not a huge problem yet, but it's one that I don't think anyone in the bourbon industry wants to see be a long-term issue to deal with.
European Union levies on U.S. whiskey, cranberries, peanut butter, and Harleys are in response to U.S. tariffs on imported aluminum and steel. Officials in North and South Korea are meeting to figure out who gets to attend a long-hoped-for reunion with loved ones left on opposite sides of the border after the Korean War. Reporter Don Kirk is in Seoul.
20,000 people have seen their long-lost relatives. That's not very many. There are more than 100,000 who've applied. As of this point, there are only about 70,000.